battle victim.
Broadcasting live on the UnitedWest.org AM radio network and simulcasting on DirecTV, iHeartRadio, Roku, and the World Wide Web, this is Enemies of the State with Tom Trento.
All right, here we go. Another month down. Another month gone. June already gone. It's July 1st, Wednesday, 2015. Your host for the next hour, Tom Trento, Enemies of the State. Name of the show, we chase bad guys and do what we can to make sure they're not affecting your life personally. So send us a lot of money so we can continue to do that. Yesterday was the deadline for the... What's going on here?
What are you talking about?
Somebody sitting next to me.
No, there's not.
How'd this happen?
No, there's nobody sitting next to you, Tom.
There's a human being sitting next to me.
No, there's not. No, there is.
Some would argue about that. Said the human.
There he is.
It's a doctor.
Oh, there he is.
It's a doctor.
It's a doctor. Is there a doctor in the house? Doctor, my neck is hurting. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have a drum roll? We can. And now, direct from the Boston area, in another state actually, Dr. Andrew Bostom. All right. People don't realize, I'm looking over here at WSBR Radio, 740 on your dial. People don't realize. You follow our show, you've seen Dr. Andy Bostom many, many times. They don't realize that the doctor part, you would think it's like a PhD in Islamic studies or something. He's a medical doctor.
He's a real doctor. He's a real doctor?
Yes, I'm a generalist in medicine, and I'm a non-specialist in
Iranian issues. No, he's very humble. Dr. Andy Bostom actually worked with Louis Pasteur to discover penicillin. People don't know that. And he performed the first heart transplant with a Swiss Army knife. He's the guy. Give him a hand.
On a monkey.
Doing that. On a monkey.
The Iranian space monkey, if I'm not mistaken.
And the monkey up in a space capsule.
And you were there when Buzz Aldrin took the first steps. Was it Buzz Aldrin? Who's the first guy that walked on the moon? It was Buzz Aldrin.
No,
Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear. That's it.
Buzz Lightyear. Neil Armstrong. Come on, Tom.
Neil Armstrong, one of those guys. Andy was there.
Buzz
he was
was
the
the
physician
second.
in the capsule, holding his breath because they didn't give him oxygen in there, but he did it. He is here in studio, ladies and gentlemen, in studio. And we are going to look at the Iranian situation. There is no other issue as important as this issue, except maybe the dump of Hillary Clinton's emails.
Yes.
That have established her as a dolt, as a liar. So what else, do we know anything new? As a liar, a dolt, very tight with Ummah.
Yeah, about half the emails in there are with
Came in an email so he could get me some iced tea.
Dude, that's
Oh,
not
yeah.
gonna work.
And Hillary Clinton
That's right.
emails
That's not gonna work.
her assistants to tell other interns to go get iced tea and bring it back to her.
Was it Long Island iced tea?
That's the way I get my iced tea, by emailing people and doing that. We actually have we have a source who has put together more information on Ummah Abedin than you could possibly imagine. And we have been sitting on it, waiting for the right time. In military doctrine, particularly SEAL doctrine, particularly in Vietnam. And I was with SEALs in Vietnam, believe it or not, at one point. Interesting story. They have what's called a kill zone. And you're off the beaten trail, and you set up a kill zone. Basically, guys in a box set up. And you have to be very disciplined to wait until the enemy comes enough into the kill zone so they can't get out of it before you kill them. We are sitting on a tremendous amount of Ummah Abedin and Hillary information. We're waiting for them to go into the ideological kill zone, where once we reveal this information, it's not going to be very good for either of their careers or for the Democrat Party. But it's too soon. We have to be disciplined. We want to get it out today, but we can't.
Yeah.
We have to be disciplined. I don't even know if she's going to get the nomination. And if she gets it, and at the right time when she's running, we will drop this information. But I don't know, Dr. B, before we get into Iran, you think Hillary is the choice for the Democrats?
I mean, it certainly looks that way. Bernie,
Well, you know more about him. You're up that neck of the woods.
It could just be a weekend or two with Bernie, and then he's out of the picture. But actually, speaking of Huma, maybe your viewers, your listeners, might want to review the public access materials. She spent 10 years on the editorial board of the journal that was really the house journal operated by her father originally and then inherited by her mother when her father passed away. It was run out of the Institute of Muslim Minority Affairs, and it was called the Journal of Muslim Minority Affairs. And if you look at a period, again, all open source, where Huma sat on the editorial board, you can see the...
Now, this is in Saudi Arabia, right, isn't it?
No, the journal is published out of England.
Out of England?
Yeah.
There was a Saudi connection. What was the Saudi connection?
The Saudi connection is where her mother teaches at a university in Saudi Arabia that Hillary Clinton visited, by the way, and was a guest speaker.
In Saudi Arabia?
In Saudi Arabia. But the journal is very clear in its Muslim Brotherhood, Wahhabist orientation. It's sort of like the old communist era front journals where they'll bring in some academics to talk about other subjects to give it the
cover. Give it a little cover.
Yeah, give it the imprimatur of mainstreamism. But it's very blatant in its championing of Muslim Brotherhood and Wahhabi ideologues. And again, that's the whole 10-year period that she's on the editorial board. So you get a sense of where she comes from ideologically.
Uma.
Yes.
And Uma, for our new listeners or viewers, at 13 minutes after the hour, 13 minutes after 4 o'clock on the East Coast, Tom Trento. Your host, Enemies of the State, our special guest, Dr. Andy Bostom. Uma Abedin was the social director, I believe it was, of the Muslim Student Association at Georgetown when she was there. So she was involved in a brotherhood organization, coming from a brotherhood family. And then got an internship in the 90s with the Clintons in the White House. Spent 6-7 years with Hillary and Bill. Went to New York when she was a senator, Hillary Clinton. That was interesting. Come from Arkansas to Washington, you become a senator in New York. That's how stupid some of these people are. So Uma was with her as a senator in New York for 6 years. Then Washington, Secretary of State, Uma is with her and becomes like the Assistant Secretary of State, whatever her title was, ridiculous, on the payroll for the Clinton Foundation.
There she is.
So there they are right there. She's very, very attractive Muslim woman. And so attractive that a Jew married her, of all things. Dr. Andy Bostom, you happen to be Jewish. You happen to know something about Jewish doctrine and Islamic doctrine. Can a Muslim woman marry a Jew? Is that okay?
Traditionally, the husband would have to convert to Islam. I mean, that's the traditional approach. There are other Islamic doctrines like darura, necessity. There are even more profound doctrines that are purely deceptive, and I'm not just talking about taqiyya. But again, if it serves another purpose, then you can go through this sort of public display of apparently violating these kinds of Sharia-based understandings.
Particularly for someone who's so mobbed up in the Brotherhood, Uma Abedin. She married by Anthony Piener, was that his name? Anthony Piener?
Yeah, Wiener. So
Anthony Weiner.
But again, you can't rule out the possibility that this is done with an understanding that the means, the ends are justified.
Well, it would be like the King of France is having his daughter marry the King of England, in the Middle Ages, to unite these families. Who, by the way, married Mr. Piener and Miss Abedin? What's his name, Piener or Wiener?
Wiener.
Oh,
Wiener, yes.
Wiener.
Yes.
I thought it was Piener.
Yeah, I don't remember what the ceremony was.
I think I remember who it was.
Who married Uma Abedin and Anthony Weiner, congressman.
Well, I think that was Bill.
Did Bill Clinton marry then?
If I'm not mistaken, I remember wedding
I
that
think you're
lovely
totally
couple
right on, Bill.
with some agreements.
I think you're so.
Literally? I mean, I didn't know that. Did
Bill Clinton married.
He oversaw the
Yes,
ceremony.
not oversaw.
So he was the official.
He was the official at
He was
their
the
wedding
official. I didn't know that. I
that
didn't
gave
know
them, which is interesting. It wasn't in a synagogue.
Hey, look, Tom. Some have argued that Huma is actually in rebellion against her strict Orthodox, Muslim.
Possibly.
Muslim
Well,
parents.
she's not wearing any head coverings.
I mean, so you could say that, but it's just I found it odd, in just reviewing this academic journal. That if someone really had a disinclination towards the Muslim Brotherhood and Wahhabist ideology, then they wouldn't sit on that.
They wouldn't
editorial
sit on the board.
and
Here's the actual official story. It's actually pretty good.
What?
Read this. It goes July 9, 2010. Bill Clinton is not giving away his daughter Chelsea's hand in marriage for another 3 weeks, but he's going to get a little practice at the altar Saturday when he officiates at the wedding of Representative Anthony Weiner and Uma Abedin, a longtime aide to Secretary of State Clinton. Ceremony will be held in Huntington, New York, and
What year was that?
2010. That's what I have the date.
So in 2010, 5 years ago, Bill Clinton officiates. Put that picture back up. At the wedding of Uma Abedin. She's on the screen left on your screen at theunitedwest.org. And on screen right, we have Anthony Weiner, who was a congressman in the United States Congress from the great state of
I
New
don't
York.
even see what he did wrong.
Not long after that, she became pregnant, and he became a media star on social internet by texting his peener or wiener, as the case may be, to the whole world to see in sort of a exaggerated, excited kind of condition.
And he did it more than not just one time. He did it multiple times.
And
he
then he
got
went
busted
back
and
after
happened
getting
again.
busted and did it again.
That happened again. You would think? Would you do that twice, or would you learn the first time?
Not once. Not once.
Not once.
Not once.
What was he thinking? What were you thinking?
But
Bill probably called him up and said, "Hey, Tony, what were you thinking, buddy?"
What kind of first name is Anthony for a Jew anyway?
I know. But you gotta, what is Clinton? Think about this. What is Bill Clinton gonna say to provide moral guidance to Weiner,
Absolutely nothing.
What could he say to him? Hey, you shouldn't have done that.
Well, I know. Well, and here's the other thing too, Tom. These two were the heir apparents in the Democrat Party. These were the chosen ones because Uma is a lifelong friend of Hillary, and this was a match made for posterity to continue on the Clinton dynasty.
Yeah, these were royal kingdoms coming together.
Yeah.
And if you remember, he had a good shot at becoming the mayor of New York. That's when all of this happened, and this kind of knocked him out, even though he kept running. But
that didn't knock out Uma from being the Secretary of State's aide.
Now imagine, this is 5
She
years
didn't do
ago.
anything wrong.
Imagine
She's
with the
just a
Clinton
Muslim brother.
Foundation. Now look, follow the money. Imagine when you're driving in your car, or somebody's driving you in your car, and you're Hillary or you're Bill, and you go, if we could lock up the city of New York, imagine the amount of money that we can twist out of the wallets of rich New Yorkers for the Clinton Foundation if our guy is the mayor of New York.
Wedding
Clearly,
picture.
this is mafiosa stuff, setting up your families to oversee markets to extort money for charitable reasons. I was told the other day by people that know that say Hillary has a good chance of winning in 2016 because hundreds of thousands of votes are going to come from, guess where?
Mexico?
Haiti. The Clintons own Haiti. They went in and helped rebuild through the Clinton initiative Haiti, billions and billions of dollars they oversaw. They own it. They own the whole thing, and they have the capability to skim off votes from Haiti, make them look like they're coming from different places in America, and get into the system.
That's also Bill's brother made a ton of money from all the contracts given out on
Yep.
the rebuild down there.
No, a person who knows told me Clinton runs Haiti now. Behind the scenes, he's the guy running Haiti, of all places. Oh, all right, in any event, what a crazy
Well,
world.
maybe that explains why it's such a paradise.
Yeah, yeah. I've been to Haiti. You ever been to Haiti?
No.
Been to Haiti, shot a documentary there years ago, came home, had the Haiti revenge, laying on my couch in my house, and somebody knocks on the door, and it was the president's son. I go look, and it's Jeb Bush is at my house, right? I go, yes. He was campaigning at that time to be the governor of
And
Florida.
He was going door to door?
He was going door to door.
Wow.
And his father was the president. He was going door to door. But he should put the idea of running for office, even though he has $50 million in the bank right now, put it away. Is there anybody out there you like, Dr. Andy B, for president of the United States?
You know, as men, I don't know, as viable candidates, I certainly like Ben Carson. And
Yeah, he's like this.
Oh, you doctors all stick together.
yeah, right.
Well,
And also I respect the intelligence and forthrightness of Ted Cruz, but I'm not. You know, I just think they're up against this machine that I don't. They could have the ideal candidate, and they might not win. So.
No, I think we have to put a team together. I think, a lot of sports teams don't have Tom Brady's or Peyton Manning. They don't have outstanding people like that, but they're able to win championships by putting a bunch of competent people together and then functioning more as a team than the dictatorial situation we have now.
So
I
having
think we're
a
gonna have
great
to do that.
defense like Seattle.
Yeah. I think we're going to have to do something like that with this crew. But I'll tell you what, I am liking Trump more and more and more. Though
Dope.
today somebody said the next 45 days will determine it because he now has to put out all of his finances like Jeb Bush just did and show how he spends his money and where he goes and all of that. And they said that he's not going to want the world to know.
we
Hey,
do have an endorsement.
outside of Haiti, there's another big group
Big
that
endorsement.
Hillary
Big
can
endorsement.
count on votes from.
Right there.
Hookers for Hillary.
Now we got some other. Yeah, we got
Yeah,
some.
well, because Bill's got a couple that he's been, been seen with over the years. So they've basically, he was just trying to drum up some support for Hillary by hanging out with all these
Are
hookers
these
over the years.
Photoshop pictures?
No, these are real pictures. That's the bunny.
For you listening, driving your
Bunny
car
ranch.
23 minutes after, Tom Trento, your host with Dr. Andy Bostom. We're looking at pictures of Bill Clinton with some absolutely very attractive, but clearly
Prostitutes.
Bunny ranch.
No, they're documented prostitutes.
Okay.
Well,
prostitutes.
there was one. That's an
I don't know about that one, but the
That's
other
an
four
actress,
were.
that one, yeah. But look, we've all had it done. You're a recognized person. When you speak somewhere, somebody will run up to you and their friend will take a picture of you. Has that happened to you?
Have you been photobombed, Boston?
I mean, I've taken pictures with people I didn't know, but I don't know if they were scandalous people.
Well,
Yeah.
no, but I mean, you don't know who the person is.
Exactly.
And it could be
Exactly.
a child
Exactly.
rapist. It could
And
be any.
I haven't
crazy
been
person.
scandalized by anything like that.
No,
Not that I know
so you
of.
have to be very careful with those pictures. But when you're Bill Clinton, we know what's going.
No,
on.
but this is a public
He
event.
doesn't think it's a scandal.
No, he doesn't.
He's proud.
It's a badge of honor
Right,
to have
exactly.
a hoe.
Exactly.
A hoe next to him. Unbelievable. We're going to talk about Iran, but we got you here in the studio. And when you first saw the picture, Dr. Andy Bostom, of the White House with gay colors all over it, what went through your brain?
At that point, after the decision and reading Justice Kennedy's opinion, or at least the closing section that became almost iconic, I guess, I just wasn't surprised. And also the hypocrisy of our president, whose views have evolved. It's not only that they've evolved; it's that they've evolved so quickly.
Well, that's Sasha and Malia's influence.
I wasn't surprised at that point. But it is, if the country was moving in that direction, it didn't need the Supreme Court to render this kind of a decision, and that's why I find it's just so bizarre. But it's not, I don't think it's any more bizarre than the opinion on Obamacare, or as Scalia calls it, SCOTUS care.
SCOTUS care, yeah.
Where there just doesn't seem to be any respect for the law now coming from our largest our most authoritative legal body.
No, I think it was Andy McCarthy wrote an article that, hey, let's stop calling this a third branch of government. It's not the judicial branch anymore. We have 4 votes, the 3 women and Stephen Breyer, Justice Breyer. Nobody questions if they're ever even going to have intellectual dissent within a leftist position.
Right.
There isn't even intellectual dissent. If a leftist president wants it, they vote for it. It's that simple. That's legislative. That's not judicial anymore at that point. On the right, you got 4 guys that fight, have internal discussions and have split. They have split over stuff, but at least they're struggling with ideas. This isn't so over there. So now if Hillary Clinton does get in, she will possibly put in 2 or 3 justices. Mm-hmm. Then we're done for as a country, as if we're not done for now.
It's not over yet, Tom. We still got a year and a half of one chicken bone away from another leftist on the court, and then if we get one more leftist on the court, we are totally done. There is no hope whatsoever because, the only thing Cruz is out there pushing judicial review. But, that's got a bad chance of happening, as you know.
Well, the only thing we really have that is good is Kagan and Sotomayor are so overweight. Their life expectancy shouldn't be as great as some of the other justices we've had.
You think they might have metabolic syndrome?
I got an email from Eddie Large the other day. Very cool email. Some insurance company put it together. And you put your age in there, then I ask you these questions. And does heart disease run in your family?
Oh, Tom, these are they're actually very good, user-friendly
actuarials
algorithms that are developed by the NIH, by the famous Framingham Heart Study has one, and
That's cool.
You can calculate your 10-year risk.
Yeah. I'm hitting the buttons, right? And it's like, do you smoke 2 packs a day, whatever? And the cigars, occasional cigars, I put in like something, and boom, I dropped two years, right, from 80 to 78. Do you wear seatbelts? Yes. Boom, went back up to 80. Do you drink more than 5 drinks a day? Right. No. Up 82. I think I came out at 107.
Oh, wow.
Very valid. Very valid.
I think it was 85 or 86.
I came out at 32.
No, but seriously,
if I lived to 85, there's something wrong with our enemies. Let me tell you.
Tom, I came
Let me
out
ask you this:
32.
when it's computing life expectancy, if you're a jihadi, does that lower your life expectancy? Is that one of the questions?
No, because then you live forever.
Yeah, then you live forever. All right. Well, we have a decision that's going to impact the West forever. The decision was yesterday. And the decision was not to have a decision. We have worked so hard, our country, to reach a decision with the Iranians that it was reached yesterday by not reaching a decision. But the wisdom of the Coker bill, to the extent that there was any wisdom in the bill whatsoever, was anticipating another delay by the Iranians, stringing along the Obama administration. So what Coker put in, he has a few fail-safe dates in there. They said, look, if you hand us all the documentation, if you conclude, you get the deal on 30th of June, then you got a couple of days to get us all the information. And it's a lot. Like I said on yesterday's show, whenever you've been deposed or you're in a lawsuit and they want every letter you've ever written for the past 10 years, every email you've ever thought about writing for the past 10 years, every person you've ever spoken to for the past 10 years. It's that kind of stuff that the Congress gets. Once they get it, they have a 30-day review. So The deadline was the 30th of June. The 30-day review comes in. Congress can weigh in on the 30 days and say, we love it, and then it's good, it goes forward, the law goes forward, Congress supports the administration. Or more likely, Congress can say, we hate it, and they want to make changes, and they make a bunch of changes, and the president says, nah, I'll veto that bill. He vetoes it, and then the Congress has to override his veto, which is not going to happen, so the president still gets his way. Back to the timeline. If they miss the 9-day window from the 30th of June to the 9th of July, then Congress gets 2 months, 60 days to do a review. So the Obama administration said yesterday, we're going to hand this in on the 7th so that you don't get 2 months, you only get 1 month, because they don't want them digging through all this stuff too much. So that's where we are, Dr. Bostom.
Just one clarification, Tom.
Yeah.
It's what the Corker bill signed away, because I remember writing about this at the time that I found the actual bill with all the
everything was crossed out. Yeah.
What the Corker bill signed away is any ability to change the agreement itself. In other words, we're not in the situation we should have been from the get-go, where this is a classic advice and consent agreement that the whole way through requires thorough senatorial review. What they're talking about is the ability of the Senate, the Congress, to potentially reimpose sanctions. And the only way they can do that, again, if they somehow don't like the agreement, they cannot change the agreement. They can potentially reimpose sanctions, but then all Obama needs to block even that last-ditch effort to reimpose sanctions, which are probably useless at this point anyway, he only needs 34 Democrats to vote with him, and then he can veto. And so it's tinkering at the margins at best, because the real capitulation took place a long time ago, and the only senator who had the courage and the insight to vote against the Corker compromise, the Corker-Cardin compromise, was Senator Tom Cotton, who pointed this all out a long time ago, that if you are going to abide this kind of process, you are effectively abrogating the Senate's right to advice and consent. And so here we have one of the most serious agreements in modern era, a nuclear arms agreement with a rogue jihadist state like Iran that is not going to go through advice and consent. And so Obama completely turned the tables on the Congress and the Senate, and it's shameful that a Republican Senate capitulated to this.
And Tom Cotton from Alabama, senator from Alabama, first term senator.
From Arkansas.
Arkansas. I think 3 or 4 combat tours in the Middle East. And I don't know if there are any other senators that also are combat vets from the Middle East right now. But 34, all Obama needs is 34 Democrats. And how many do we have? I think we have 44 or something like that. So nobody in their right mind thinks that the override of the veto by Republicans is even a remote possibility.
And again, Tom, that's just to potentially reimpose or ratchet up even, in the ideal situation, sanctions. That has nothing to do with changing the nature of the
which we're going to get into, the elements of the deal. So we're screwed any way you want to look at this point. Though yesterday, Andy, President Obama, today's the 1st of July, Wednesday, Tom Trento, 34 minutes after Enemies of the State, WSBR Radio, RedStateTalkRadio.com. We're on midnight for all the crazy people that are up all night long. Red State Talk Radio. Did you know there's another world out there at night?
Oh yeah, I can't go to sleep. You tap into it.
If you want to listen to us at midnight on the East Coast, RedStateTalkRadio.com. Studio B, the United West, Tom Trento. You can listen to the show, or UnitedWest.org. You can watch the show. It's a little television show, real show. Yesterday, President Obama somehow ate some Wheaties and had a little bit of Bruce Jenner juice flowing through him. And he said, if I don't get the deal I want, I'm walking away from this.
Oh, he's feeling these Wheaties now. Yeah,
I'm walking away from this deal. I don't get
Hey, God bless him. Let's hope so.
Yeah. We think here in the headquarters, world headquarters of the United West, we think it was excellent theater because he's going to say in 9 days, 8 days now.
Let's keep it in context. It would be Takia Theater.
Yeah, Takia Theater. He's going to say on the 7th, this is the deal I wanted. I'm not walking away from this.
Right,
and all the dopey people that follow him are going to go, our brave guy was going to walk away, but he's staying now, so this is a great deal.
An historic agreement which prevents Iran from obtaining nuclear.
We're going to really.
I got a question for you, Dr. Bostom.
So we're going to do that. We're also going to, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, we're going to storm the United States Congress with a protest and all legal, all of that, but basically make the argument through a press conference and through public assembly that this is a bad deal, must be stopped, and our view is Iran must be bombed. Our view is bomb them today, bomb their facilities today, and then go, oops, well, we had that 7 days. I don't push the wrong button and we blew up all your facilities. I'm sorry. Let's go sit down again and start talking.
Now,
that's the way I would negotiate. And we said what's missing, Dr. B, from the negotiating table, you got John Kerry.
Right.
Would you hire him to negotiate anything for you?
No.
How about
just surrender?
just surrender. And he has French blood, so he can do that very well. What about Wendy Sherman? Would you hire her?
She has a great track record. Look at North Korea.
She was the head of Emily's List, the pro-abortion fundraising thing for women.
I wish she had stayed there.
And then we looked at Ernest Moritz, the guy with the long hair, the PhD physicist. Would you, if they volunteered to negotiate for you to get a job at a hospital, would you accept it or reject it?
Say again, wait a minute.
Let's say John Kerry says,
Yes.
you want to get a job at Mass General? Well, I'm from the state of Massachusetts. Let me negotiate your deal.
Oh, for me?
For you. Would you let him do that?
No.
Okay. And this is who we have negotiating for us. We decided here in the studio yesterday that you need somebody, if you want to be serious about negotiating, you need somebody who grew up in New Jersey or New York. You got to have somebody from New York or New Jersey, those arrogant, loudmouth. You need that person at the table. And we had Vinny. Vinny was going to go do it for us.
I'm still
Cousin
willing to
Vinny.
go do it, T.
Oh, Vinny Boombox.
Vinny Boombox.
You going to do it, Vinny?
I'd love to go do it. I don't think I could get a passport over there, but I'd do that in a heartbeat. I got a little problem, some legal issues from the past, so
You can't travel to Vienna?
they're not going to let me out of the country right now, T. But if they want to go up to New York, I'd be more than happy to break some
That
tones.
raises another question. Who the hell picks the venues for these things? Vienna, Geneva.
Right.
They should be in Newark, New Jersey, having these meetings, or Baltimore, or south side of Chicago. That's where these meetings should be.
Take it to Ferguson.
You want to see? You want to see how fast they'll finish this? Let's go outside to the cafe and sit down. Boom, 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 boom. Whoa, what's going on here? We should finish our discussions.
And here's the other point that we made. What type of message does this send to the Iranians when you make your White House this rainbow
Look at
color?
this.
Right.
I mean, this is just before, how was it, 2 days before
2
the
days
deadline?
before.
The deadline, they put this multicolor house, and understanding how much the Iranians hate gays, throw them off of buildings. What type of message?
They hang them from cranes over there.
Hanging them from cranes.
What type of message does that send? Doesn't that send just utter weakness over to the Iranians and say, oh, we're just, what does it send?
Yeah, but according to Ahmadinejad, there are no homosexuals in Iran.
Yeah. So.
No, but really, the point we discussed on yesterday's show was, whereas people accused Pamela Geller, Spencer, Geert, and ourselves of being provocateurs, provoking Islam through the exercise of our First Amendment right to hold an event.
Oh,
Is that not
that's
provocation? To shine it, you're
Absolutely.
negotiating with these people, and you're saying we're gay, as you're negotiating with them.
Yeah, it's both provocative and a sign of weakness simultaneously.
Right, exactly.
It really is.
The worst of both worlds. All right, well,
And just-
the best.
This is what they do to them over there. Look at this picture.
Yep.
They hang the gays from cranes.
Yep.
And they want to paint the White House rainbow? They're crazy.
BJ, I know.
Well,
we're with you on this,
I
buddy.
wish that would be the reaction of the gay community in this country.
Well, actually,
in all seriousness.
reading through the Hillary emails, there was a very long email exchange between Hillary and other people from the gay community about the atrocities happening in Iraq with gays and with the Muslim community, how outraged they are. And have you ever heard of Hillary coming back and saying, "Oh my God, this is an atrocity, what's happening out there in the Middle East"? No, never.
Listen, again, just to show, and you can say the same thing about Iran, but the bipartisan nature of the failure of imagination, the failure to deal with Islam as it is. Mark, getting back to this issue of homosexuality in Iraq, the lionized by the right and left, Ayatollah Sistani, during the Bush administration, issued fatwas about killing gays, and it was actually some gay rights groups that pointed this out. But he was extolled, and the National Review editorial board to the New York Times was suggesting that this man should get the Nobel Peace Prize. So again, it comes back to a real bipartisan failure.
And that's what it comes down to. And for on the gay community side, generally speaking, gay people historically have identified themselves through their sexuality. That's the whole thing. Identify themselves through their sexuality.
I mean,
and the immediate obstacle to the advancement of who they are sexually are morally minded people in the United States, historically Christians in the Republican Party. So that's enemy number one. The far off enemy, 10,000 miles away, Iranians on cranes, that has nothing to do with whether or not they can have a bathhouse in San Francisco right now and stick their hands through a hole into somebody else's anus, which is part of the whole milieu of homosexual activity. And I used to counsel those guys on Monday mornings when they would, I had many of them working for me in Chicago, working with me. They'd come in crying, Monday morning, I've had a horrible weekend, and this and that, and my body's sagging, and they hate me now, and all this stuff, crazy stuff. But we'll deal with that when the time is right. Time is right now for another great. In fact, let's show movie number 6 from Clarion.
The one from yesterday?
Yeah, the one from yesterday. I want to re-show that. It was so good. And then they have a new one out, number 7. So we'll show 6. Get Dr. Bostom's.
We're short time, man. We got to go right to 7.
No.
Yeah.
Number 6 really sets it up. It's only 2 minutes.
Okay.
He could see it, sets it up. Then we'll go into number 7. And again, we're at the front end of at least 30 days of review. We're going to stay on this. This is the most serious existential issue before us right now and before Israel. So when these guys are ready, take a look at this. It's when Iran wins the discussion, what's the world going to look like? It's going to look like this, Dr. B.
Negotiators working all through last night to put together the document just announced.
This framework would cut off every pathway that Iran could take to develop a nuclear weapon.
Best and most effective way to prevent that threat.
We have a historic opportunity.
A peaceful path forward.
It is a good deal.
Here's what can happen if the deal goes bad.
The Iran nuclear deal is showing signs of trouble right from the start, with the White House stating,
because Iran is refusing to allow inspectors into its Fordo facility.
Inspectors report today that Iran has installed additional high-speed centrifuges.
This places Iran in flagrant violation of the agreement just signed.
Today, the new discovery of a secret Iranian nuclear facility.
Iran confirms it has crossed the nuclear threshold.
Latest Mideast power play, Saudi Arabia declares itself nuclear capable, with tensions mounting.
Which is why Iran is shutting vital oil passageways, a move that can only...
In retaliation, there were massive airstrikes on Iranian oil fields, decimating billions of...
Triggering waves of rage in the Arab street.
The fighting intensifies. The White House urges restraint.
Iran vows to unleash its nuclear arsenal.
We interrupt our regularly scheduled program with a report of massive seismic activity in the Middle East.
Security unraveling as chaos erupts throughout the Middle East.
Massive nuclear explosion in the Saudi capital.
Today is the first time since Nagasaki that civilians have been targeted.
Satellites show megatons of black carbon pouring in the jet stream.
Horrific scenes of poisoned water supplies.
Feeding reports of a catastrophic casualty count.
Unraveling as chaos erupts throughout the Middle East.
Here is the first footage of the Iranian blast that sparked this global panic.
Iran is emboldened and now threatening to strike America. Could this be...
Oil hits $350 a barrel.
Savings accounts were frozen today.
Exchange closed after the Dow drops 37%.
Now seeing is widespread looting and panic across America.
The internet blackout spread, leaving countless...
Police clash with rioters.
Mobilize the National Guard.
The president has been moved to a secure bunker in an undisclosed location.
Nationwide curfews.
Martial law.
Which means there's just been security.
Nation with wide curfew.
Day is
What happens in Iran doesn't stay in Iran. It's not too late to change the channel. There you go.
So this is the Clarion. Yeah. Well, look. That's the whole problem with allowing Iran to get nuclear weapons. It does really ratchet up all the fault lines that were so obvious now in the Middle East between Sunni and Shiite, and that doesn't even mention the possibility that Iran, in sort of an attempt to shall we say, mollify its Sunni enemies, actually strikes Israel first. I mean, so you could redo that scenario and see at least a transient joint celebration by Sunni and Shiite alike if it were Israel that were annihilated in a preemptive Iranian strike. But the bottom line is it unleashes mass chaos, confusion. And it simply doesn't have to be. And this is what's so tragic, and why I get back, I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, about why this is such a terrible bipartisan failure of imagination. We've known since the summer of 2002 about what were then clandestine facilities, Natanz, a uranium enrichment facility, another facility where there's harvesting of uranium ore in Isfahan. And the Bush administration, with all the troops we had deployed in Iraq, didn't do anything about those facilities. It didn't even bomb the IED factories that were killing and maiming our troops.
That was absurd at that time.
In Iran.
The shape charges, all of that, yeah.
And I'm really very tired about hearing about the great surge and how Obama just simply undid the wonderful gains from that. I mean, this is patent nonsense. But the status of forces agreement that Bush signed, not the one that Obama eventually didn't sign at the end of 2011, that included a direct stipulation that Iraq, at the time that we occupied it, could not be used to attack, quote, neighboring states. And who do you think that meant? Moreover, around the time that Israel, under the otherwise generally feckless Olmert, he at least manned up and attacked the Syrian facility, which we now know was at least a nuclear facility in construction. He wanted to get flyover rights when we totally controlled Iraqi airspace with all our troops deployed there, and go after what we apparently hadn't gone after, were unwilling to go after, and do some damage to the program at that stage. Somewhere in 2007 to 2008, Gates convinced Bush II not to allow the flyover rights, and the reason given was that it would, quote, undo the great gains of the surge. And so, of course, you can take a bad situation and make it worse. To Bush II administration's credit, they never sat down across a negotiating table with the Iranians, let alone about nuclear, facilitating basically their so-called right to enrich uranium. But clearly, we're at this critical, dangerous, existential juncture because of a whole series of failures.
Series of failures, absolutely, and no one's learning. No one. This administration,
no,
because they're not an administration that wants to analyze the the historical situation accurately and then move out from there. They have an ideological position they want to implement. They have a legacy they want to identify and make Obama's. So they're off and running and being played as fools by the Iranians.
They seem to be reconstructing this two pillars idea in an era where it's changed dramatically. So during the Cold War era, the two pillars of stability, at least in terms of the Muslim world, were the Iran under the Shah, who was very anti-communist and also anti-fundamentalist Islam, and the Saudi monarchy, which was totally fundamentalist Islam, but at least anti-communist in an era where Soviet communism was the major threat,
the issue, yeah.
and both were major suppliers of oil. So, you get this retrograde so-called Iranian Revolution in 1979, which restores the Shiite theocracy, which existed between 1501 and 1925, basically. And now you have a fundamentalist Shiite, world dominating ideology coming out of Iran. At the same time, you still have it coming out of Saudi Arabia from the Sunni perspective, and yet Obama would just sort of reinvent the two pillars concept in the absence of dealing with this jihadist ideology.
And that brings us to, and the world was silent. Check out this seventh film in the series by Clarion, and this is just a couple of minutes, when the world was silent.
History repeats itself.
Showing reports of Nazi atrocities.
2 weeks before D-Day, we Jews in Hungary, in our ghetto, we didn't know about Auschwitz. Washington knew, the Vatican knew, Switzerland knew, everyone who should have known knew, and they didn't warn us. The world was silent. If anyone had told us in 1945 that there are certain battles we'll have to fight again, we wouldn't have believed it. I was convinced that hatred among nations and among people perished in Auschwitz. It didn't. The victims died, but the haters are still here.
Moved to the Middle East.
New ones.
I just came from a meeting of the Israeli cabinet. We discussed the proposed framework for a deal with Iran. This deal would pose a grave danger to the region and to the world, and would threaten the very survival of the State of Israel. Now, I know that some in the international community think I'm exaggerating this threat. Have these people learned nothing from history? The last century has taught us that when a radical regime with global ambitions gets awesome power, sooner or later, its appetite for aggression knows no bounds. The world may have forgotten this lesson. The Jewish people have not. Iran's fanaticism is not bluster. It's real.
Annihilation is the only cure for Israel's regime. Israel is a cancerous tumor. So what do you do with the cancerous tumor? What can be done to treat a tumor other than removing it?
They want to wipe us away. If they have the weapons to wipe us away, they'll try.
We must prevent another catastrophe.
I wish I could promise you, Eli, that the lessons of history have been learned. I can only urge the leaders of the world not to repeat the mistakes of the past.
Indifference is not an option. Indifference is never an option.
Yeah, another fabulous, very short, very poignant piece by the Clarion boys and girls.
Tom, I would just add a couple of things. First of all, an equally abhorrent and even more murderous totalitarianism they could have referred to would have been the Soviet Union, and its ravages against its own people and against a lot of the known world during the World War II era and afterward. An ideology, by the way, which in the era before political correctness was very frequently equated with Islam. There's a wonderful book by Jules Montereau, who is another one of these ex-communists who had his own coming about. And in a book called The Sociology of Communism, the entire first section of the book is called Communism, the 20th Century Islam. People as diametrically opposed in their viewpoints as Bertrand Russell, the atheist polemicist and philosopher, and the Christian apologist G.K. Chesterton, within a couple of years of the Bolshevik Revolution, both equated, from a Christian apologist perspective and an atheist, both equated Islam and communism. And also, I think that Netanyahu's wonderful speech, what is it, it's like 3 months ago now.
It was March 3rd.
Yeah. He laid out how the two of the three pillars, I would say, of the Iranian regime. He got to the jihadism, which is enshrined literally in the Constitution, which includes the Quranic verse 860, so from the 8th chapter, 60th verse, about striking terror in the hearts of the infidel. And why do you do that? Because they want to spread Islamic hegemony, and they specifically reference the Sharia globally. That's in the Iranian constitution. That's their mission. And the other thing, of course, he referred to is Ayatollah Khamenei's Twitter account, where 9 reasons to annihilate Israel. So the Jew hatred is right out on Twitter. The thing he didn't get to is also you can get from Ayatollah Khamenei's Twitter account is this Shiite doctrine of najis, or the physical and spiritual impurity of the infidel. So a year before that now infamous tweet about 9 reasons to annihilate Israel, that was 2014. In 2013, Khamenei tweeted out Israel was the unclean, that's the najis, rabid dog of the region. And it's this dehumanizing concept which you dehumanize and then you destroy. And the history of the Jews in Iran bears that out. I mean, they were frequently subjected to pogroms, including pogroms that wiped out small communities. And they were subjected to these najis regulations. Jews could not leave their ghettos. They were ghettoized, they were badged centuries before the Nazis came up with identifying badges.
Sure, yeah.
And they could not go out in the rain because their physical impurity might wash off and pollute Muslims.
This is Iranian doctrine.
This is Shiite najis doctrine. It comes from a very literal interpretation of a Quranic verse.
Well, what we need to do, because we're almost out of time, we need to pursue that because there's a confusion right now, not only with policymakers, but even with thoughtful people, as to whether or not the doctrine of najis, the doctrine of jihad, is playing a role in motivating the Ayatollah and the mullahs in their geopolitics and their quest for nuclear weaponry. And one of the arguments is, look, these guys ride around in Rolls Royces,
they wear Rolexes.
They wear Rolexes. If they spit at Israel, Israel's going to blow them up. They're all going to get fried. So all of this stuff is bluster for their constituents. It's not the real world body politic. Give me 15 seconds, because we're down, and we'll pursue this later. What is your response to that there's a bifurcation?
I think that's dangerous nonsense. And you can see it, the Argentinian prosecutor Nisman was, we believe, assassinated. I read through...
Oh, really? Shot in his bathtub or whatever?
Yeah, right. In his indictment of Iran and Hezbollah, et cetera, as being involved in the embassy in the Buenos Aires bombings, the 2 bombings in the early 1990s, he uncovered just a sermon, a staid sermon that Rafsanjani, another
moderate,
who fits the bill, very wealthy, probably one of the wealthiest men in Iran, giving just a routine Friday sermon where he mentions this fact that, look, we're a large nation. If there is a nuclear exchange with Israel, there's no more Israel, and a significant proportion of our population will survive, and that will advance Islam. This is a moderate in a quiet setting, not in a public, large public setting.
That's the nuclear calculus.
And he is still considered, even by the center policy-making circles in Washington, to be a moderate.
And the win-win on that, and we have to end the show right now, the win-win is those who were incinerated on the Iranian side, because they died in a holy war.
They're martyrs. They're martyrs.
They're in heaven.
Yeah, you don't need to
tomorrow.
invoke eschatology.
More stuff tomorrow. Take it easy. Tom Trento, Dr. Andy Bostom saying goodbye.